Hi, and welcome to Stamp with Ginny. Today I'm going to share with you how I made this lovely card. That's a 3D pop-up box card. I've used the piece to use stamp set that you can find in the mini catalog. So let me set this aside and I'll show you how I got started. We're going to start this project by scoring the piece of cardstock here. I'm going to start at the 1/2 inch mark, the 2.5 inch mark, 4.5, and 6.5, and then I can set my scoreboard to the side. Okay, I'm ready to stamp now, and I've brought in my image and my basic white cardstock, and I'm going to ink this up. Now, because this is a larger solid image, I've got it flipped on its back so I can see exactly where I'm applying the ink and to make sure I get it on there nicely. If you want, you can wipe off the edges, but since we're going to be trimming that's not a huge issue. So I am going to go straight down and 1, 2, 3, and lift carefully. I've got this beautiful image and I'm ready to move on to my sentiment. So I've got my piece of evening evergreen cardstock, and I'm going to use my embossing buddy and lightly touch the bottom of the cardstock with it and run it across to remove that static. And then I'm going to ink up my sentiment in the Versamark, and I'm going to stamp that on the bottom. There we go. And then I'm going to bring in my white embossing powder and just sprinkle it over the top and tap. Brush off any excess. Our new tool has got some wonderful things in it that you can use to make sure your embossing is just perfect each time. I'm going to heat set this now, and then we'll assemble. I'm going to start with my image here, and I am simply going to use my paper snips and trim along that line. I want to get all the way up to the ink and not leave a white margin. This is a nice geometric shape, so it's fairly easy to cut quickly. Along the bottom here, I am going to follow that line of the ink also, which will give you a little bit of a wave. And there we go. I've got that done, and I'm ready to attach it to my gold glimmer. Now I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to use the multi-purpose liquid because I want this to hold nicely, and this will allow it to seep into all those pores. I'm going to line this up here in the center and make it straight. This is an advantage also of the glimmer or the multi-purpose adhesive, because you can line things up and shift things a little bit until it dries. I'm going to create a peak along the top of my glimmer paper with my paper snips simply by laying it there and then running it down. There we go. I've got that done, and I'm ready to apply it to my evening evergreen layer. And so I'm going to flip this over and place some dimensionals on the back because I want to pop this up and create a bit of a shadow. Remove the backings. And then I'm going to bring this in and place it, so that the sentiment is about even on my evening evergreen cardstock, and adhere that down. And then I'm going to take my paper snips and I'm going to do the same cutting motion across the top of the evening evergreen like I did with the gold glimmer. There we go. I've got my focal point finished, and I'm ready to start assembling my card base. Now I'm going to place my 1/2 inch strip here on the left, and I've got these 3 panels. So I am going to take my designer series paper and apply it to the left panels, and then my basic white cardstock strip on the left next to the 1/2 inch, and I'm going to adhere those down. Now this designer series paper is fairly forgiving because it's got a random pattern on it, but if you're using a pattern from the pack, you'll want to make sure that you use them in the right order and the right direction so they look Okay. All right, now that I have that final panel on, I'm ready to start assembling. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold this box card on the score lines with my fingers. I like to do this first with my fingers because that makes it a little easier when I bring in my bone folder. And then I'm going to repeat that process using the bone folder so that I've got nice tight score lines. I'm going to open that up and bring in my tear and tape. And I'm going to apply this tear and tape to this 1/2-inch strip all the way down close to the score line. And tear. And then I'm going to remove that backing. I've got a little piece of cardstock from the last time there, so I've removed that. And I'm going to bring my 2 ends together and line them up and burnish. There we go. I've got my basic card done now, and so I want to open it up and flatten it down where you've got this basic white on the right hand side, since this is the top of my product. I'm going to bring in 2 tabs here that I've cut, and because this is a Christmas card, I thought it would be easier than punching to create a number of these at one time. I've simply scored it in half so that it'll fold quickly. There we go, and you can use your bone folder if you would like on these also, so you get a nice tight line. I'm going to add some of my multi-purpose adhesive here, and you can use your tear and tape if you would prefer. And I want to make sure I'm putting this in the center of my image, so I can do that simply by holding and then removing. I want to make sure I'll have enough cardstock when the time comes to adhere this to. And I'm going to put the other one right next to it on the other side of that score line. And you can even open it up and hold while that dries a little bit so that you know you've got it where you want it. Now that I have that done, I'm going to open these 2 flaps up, add some more adhesive, bring in my focal point here, line it up with that crease line so it's nice and centered, and adhere. Okay, now that I have the card front applied to my card, I'm going to bring in my Take Your Pick tool and these beautiful gold pearls. These pearls can be found in our mini catalog and work perfectly with this designer series paper pack and the layout we're using today. I think you're really going to enjoy this pop-up box card using the Piece to You stamp set. And of course, if you need any of these products, feel free to stop by my online store. You can get there from my blog, Stamp with Jini. Thanks for joining me.